Welcome back, everyone. Today I want to get started on finally putting some sheet metal up on this bus. The weather has not cooperated lately, so she's been sitting here covered in tarps for longer than I would have liked. But I've got all the materials over on the trailer, so I'm going to back the trailer up to the bus so make it a little bit easier to move things around. I'm going to start in the back and work our way forward. I've got 4 by 10 foot sheets of 18 gauge sheet metal. So first plan, I need to get some paint on these hat channels. So hopefully I can get that done here pretty quick. Get them cleaned up, at least on this side. On the other side it's not such a big deal. I can paint them after the metal's up. So let's get some paint on some of these. A 4 by 10 sheet should cover the first 4 windows here. So I can get this untied if I can do it with one hand. Okay. So a 4 by 10 sheet should cover everything you see here and go up to this hat channel right there. So hopefully, I think 3 pieces on each side is what I figured, and then a little bit of an extra patch piece in the front. So I should be able to cover some pretty good ground once I get started. But let's get some measurements on here, see what I can figure out for what I need to cut the metal to. I've got an air shear. Should make it a little bit faster than using the cutoff wheels that I'm used to. And I've got a plasma cutter, but it makes a real mess and you have to grind up the edges, or at least I've never found a way to get it smoother than that. Maybe someday a plasma table is in my future, but not yet. Let's get some work done, and we'll see what we get. Each of these sheets needs to be a slightly different set of dimensions. So I took some measurements. I need a height, or in the case of the sheet metal, a width, that will get me below this lower line of rivets all the way up to above the first line of rivets up there. But I need to be below the second line that I didn't take out. So that's what it's going to take in order to put these in. But then I also don't want it too wide, because I have to be able to pick the whole thing up, slide it down behind this rub rail, and then slide it in up top, pushing everything back up into place. So what I figured, these are 4 feet by 10 feet right here. So what I need is 44 inches side to side in order to clear up here when I put them in. Also, the distances lengthwise down here and lengthwise along the bus are going to be a little bit different panel by panel. So this one needs to cover all the way back to here where the original trim strip went, and it needs to come forward far enough that I can terminate it over a hat channel. Now my original plan was to try to double up, so I wanted to have the rear panel come all the way forward to the front of the hat channel so I could get 2 lines of rivets in it, and then I was going to run the front panel over the top back to here so I could get 2 lines of rivets in that as well. But it looks like this time that's just not going to be possible. So when I take measurements here, 10 feet covers 1, 2, 3, 4 windows up to right about there, kind of right in the middle of the hat channel. Now I could cut it off small over to here, but that's going to change the orientation of my panels, and I really don't want to do that. So I think I'm going to go ahead and run this one full length at 10 feet, just knowing that this rear panel is only going to have 1 line of rivets on its front edge. It should be fine, because obviously the front panel is going to overlap over the back panel, and it's going to have 2 lines of rivets in it. So I should be fine either way. But let's get this cut. So the way I'm marking this out, because obviously these are large panels, I've got a T-square down here. So I measure 4 inches and place the T-square along this edge over here, which allows me to start the line right down this direction. I was able to get, oh, how far? Maybe about to here somewhere with my line. Then I've got this leftover piece of rectangular tube that's longer than 10 feet. So I can take this, line it up with the line I've got, and trace out the rest of it. What I'm using to cut this out is this. This is a pneumatic nibbler or pneumatic shear. So sorry for the noise, but this is how it works. So here we are, just about ready to put the first sheet up, or at least I think I'm getting close. So before painting the new risers, I made sure to check and grind down any areas here where my welds were, where I might have had a little extra material. Just making sure these are nice and flat so I don't have weird protrusions when I put these on. That's that part. Up there I still need to paint that one because I want to weld that sheet metal that's going to be up underneath the new sheet before I put it up. Down here I used the pneumatic shear to cut these 4 inches off the length of the sheet. Then cleaned it all off with some paint thinner and painted around the edges. And these spots here in the middle, you can see there, there, and there. That big block in the middle, I thought about painting the whole thing, but I actually don't have enough primer for that right now. So these here are, this is going to be the inside of the sheet, and that's where it contacts the verticals up here. So I wanted to make sure that I had that all primed beforehand. I can always add more paint later. So I'm going to flip this over, and on the outside I just need to paint around the edges. Just the places where it's going to be behind the rub rail and behind the upper sheet metal up there. So flip this over, get that painting done, and then I can work on getting it up in place. One more step closer. So I have all of the hat channels painted, just waiting for them to dry a little bit. I also went ahead and painted the sides of the new steel around the window that are going to be difficult to get to after the fact. And I added in this piece of hat channel right here. So like I think I told you before, this window is going to sit a little further back in this opening, so I wanted to add a little extra support up front. Yes, I know it's going to mean there's a rivet line up there that won't line up, but we'll see. I may choose not to put that in the first place. Just thinking about the fact that I should have rivets going up here, and a little bit, like one set up top there. So I guess we'll see. If I feel the need to put some rivets around this edge, I'll do it, and they just won't line up. Next step, I'm going to put spray foam in these hat channels. So originally, the bus manufacturers put in fiberglass. You can see a little bit of it left over here. I took all that out, obviously, and I figure I do want to put some insulation in there. It's a cavity, so I might as well do something with it. So I'm just using your standard crack-filling foam. This is the brand I ended up with. It was the one that was available. I don't think it really matters what brand you use. But I'm going to take this and spray it in there and then trim off the excess. Okay, for those of you who made it this far in the video and in the series, don't do what I just said I was going to try. So, I tried using this crack-filling foam inside the hat channels. As you can see, it made a royal mess. In a couple of places, these two, it just rolled right out of the top and just fell right down the side of the bus. Also, it doesn't stick terribly well to those hat channels. I figured it would. I've used spray foam before, and it didn't seem to have any problems. Like out of the can, not the mixed type that I'll be using for the rest of the bus. Anyway, also, it didn't get very far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About 5.5 hat channels is all I can get out of a can. So, maybe I'm using the wrong brand, or maybe it's the wrong stuff. But if anybody knows of a better way to use spray foam in these hat channels, please comment below. Otherwise, take what I just did as an indicator of what maybe not to do. It didn't seem to work out very well. It does make me wonder, though. There are some holes on the insides of the hat channel. I might have been able to put the sheet metal up first, rivet it all in place, and then fill it from the inside. And I might still try that. So, we'll see. But for now, lesson learned. Okay, we're getting there. So, the first sheet's always the toughest. You have to figure out how you're going to do things, what order you want to put it up in, that kind of deal. So here's what I did. After I cut that to size and got it all primed, which you saw a little bit ago, I put this little piece of mini scaffold here on this side. It's the only thing I've got. I picked up the sheet and stood it up alongside the bus from here to there. You can actually see where I did my final priming right up against the bus. Then I've got these 2 tie-down straps going over the top and connecting to the drip rails on the other side, and just slowly working it up there. Now, I don't know that I like this technique. There's so much height to change here that it would have been nice to have maybe a couple more people here just to mostly lift this into position and then pull the straps up to about this spot. Basically what I had to do, because my straps are not designed to have the strapping roll up outside of the mechanism, I could only go so far. So I had to raise it part way and then put a support underneath it, pull the strap down, get all the extra material out of it, and start over. Same thing over here. So just kind of working it up a little bit on each side. Then up top, if you can see it up there, this needed to go outside of that rear panel, but it's going to go inside of the one above it. So I think what I'm going to try to do, we'll see, I don't know for sure, but I like the fact that this is kind of automatically sliding up those hat channels into position. So I'm going to see if I can wedge it up in there behind that sheet metal, and once I get that, then I might try to pull the center out and see if I can bend it and curve it to get it to fit in behind this, this rub rail. If that doesn't work, then I think the other option is, I know I cut it with enough extra length to be able to drop it behind the rub rail and then push it up into position, but that's going to be a little more complicated since I can't get the straps underneath it if I do that. So if that becomes necessary, the plan will be to lower this down, pull it out so it can slide up on the outside of those rails up top there, and then drop it down in behind the rub rail first, then push it in and try to raise it up behind the rivet line up top. So we'll try this first, see if it works. I sure hope it does. And then we'll go from there. I'm also trying to get this roughly lined up. This one I do have this paint seam right here, so it's pretty easy to just slide it back and forth and get it lined up where I want it. And if we look up front here, we're going to be in front of that rivet line, so it's going to be fine. It's kind of leaning a little bit toward the back right now. That's why that doesn't line up top. But we'll keep working. Well, that is a process. Oh my word. So, after a lot of shimmying and use of the air chisel, I was able to get that piece slid up underneath that rivet line high enough that I can actually attach it. So I'm lined up back here along my paint line, right there, and I went ahead and took the screw out that was back here in the back, so the the rub rail should be open enough that I can get behind it. Now, as you can tell, there's a little bit of damage to the panel here. I had planned on putting an extra piece of steel here and then didn't do it, but I think I might do that for the next one. We'll see. Anyway, what I'm going to have to do now that I've got a few rivets up top, there are a total of 8 of them drilled out and installed. I think maybe you can see them just to the right of the ladder. That's 4. And the other 4 are just to the left of the ladder. You can't see those. So most of these I can put in, but some of them I'm going to have to do a little extra work to clean up because some of the extra sheet metal came out around them. But once I get that top line of rivets in place, all the way across up there, then I'm going to pull the middle of this panel out and see if I can bow it in to get it to slide in behind that rub rail. There's plenty of room back here, so this goes to right above that top protrusion right there. So basically there's a lot of room for it to slide in, so if I can just get it over that edge, it should be fine. And then obviously we'll just repeat this on down the bus. So next step, finish up with this one. I'm not going to put in any of these back rivets here or anything along this rear edge because I still have this piece to make and install, and it's going to go inside of the panel in front of it. So I'll slide this behind the rub rail, but I'm not going to do anything that'll tighten it in too tight back here until I have its other piece in place. We'll keep working. I think I finally found a method of putting up the sheet metal that actually works. So, you cut it to size, prime the inside and the outside, at least the areas that could be covered. Then I slide it over here and pick it up and put it on top of this piece of scaffolding here, just to get it off the ground. Then put a couple of ratchet straps that I've slung over the top and connected to the rain covers on the other side. I have to go several times. Like, these aren't designed to have all that wound up on them, so I crank them up as far as I can go until they're starting to interfere. Then I support the metal from underneath, pull the strap back down, and then reset everything. So it works though. Then, in order to get it up there, what I found I have to do, there's what appears to be butyl tape between the upper panels of the bus and this framework. So, dealing with some nice hot weather actually helps here. It loosens up that tape. So what I do is I tighten up the straps as far as I can go to try to get this as far up in there as possible. Then from inside here I use an air hammer with a flat blade on it and just kind of punch up in there a few times and make sure everything's clear, making particularly sure here where they have a little extra material. Then what I look for, if you can see it, right up in here we've got a set of rivet holes that I can easily see. So I watch for this metal to slide up behind that rivet line. Once I know it's up there, as I'm working on this, I also try to get it lined up where I set it front and back. So this one I set to line up right here at the front of this hat channel. There will be an overlap for the next one going forward. That'll cover 3 windows on that one. And once I'm sure I've got that, then we slide it up into place and lock down the straps. Then from there, what I'm going to do, I'm hoping you can see on this one. Do you see the rivets up there? There are 4 of them there and 4 of them there. So basically I drill out the center sections just for those 8 rivets, and do the same thing over here, the 2 on both sides of the ladder, just to get it hung. Then I could add a few more up here just to make sure it's nice and solid. I don't worry about that upper rivet line just yet. I just want to make sure I've got all the pieces hanging, and then I'll deal with the next part. So this one back here, I think you can probably see, is bent. See that? The reason why it's bent is because I was trying to bow the middle out and push the bottom in to get it to slide in behind this rub rail. I took the upper rivet line off. Unfortunately, I just could not make that happen. So what I'm working on now, and I can continue now that I've got the second sheet up, I'm taking off the bottom rivet line, and I'm going to just drop this upper rub rail. So I'll try not to separate it completely until I can put a few more straps up here to hold on to it just to keep it straight. But that way I should be able to slide the whole thing down, just take it out of the way, push the sheet metal against it, and I'll work my way down these edges here. So there's a hat channel right there, right underneath that strap. So I'll work from the top down and just make sure that it's nice and flat coming down. Then once I have it down to this point, then I can put the rub rail back up once all the sheets are in place. I'll rivet the bottom line and then drill and rivet the top line, including the new sheet metal. So it's a little bit more work than I originally planned, but at least it's working. This first sheet I did in much cooler conditions, and it took, oh man, most of a day to get that sheet up there just to the point you see it now. This one took about an hour from the point where I lifted it onto the scaffolding to the point where it is now. So it's getting a whole lot faster. The next one going forward, and I'll show you this once I get the tarp out of the way, this one's going to be a shorter panel, just so the interface where the old roof line comes together I can do with a much smaller piece. But this one will be about 8 feet long instead of the 10 feet that I've been working with so far. And this one I need to shape a little bit just so I can get it welded into the existing roof the way I want it to be. So for now, I'm going to get some rivets in this, get it up there, and then I need to move this tarp out of the way and start measuring for the piece in front of it. I've decided I'm going to try to do one side of the bus first and then go forward to the other side. So if we go back here, you can see this side has no sheet metal on it yet. So hopefully the things I've learned working on this side over here will be useful, and I can repeat them over on this end. Let's keep working. Well, we got quite a bit of rain last night, and I think I need to do something about these tarps. I know you can't really see it much there, but there's definitely water in the bus. So the tarps are not holding up anymore. It's been too long. I definitely wasn't expecting this to take more than a month to get the sheet metal up. So the next piece I'm working on is this slightly smaller piece. It's going to enclose from right there all the way up to this hat channel right here. So this little piece here I'm going to do separate. I could do it all as one, but I figured it made a lot more sense to just go ahead and put the bigger piece in and then overlap at this point, since my position here on this roof is going to be significantly lower than my position on the other roof. So anyway, makes this last piece a little easier to deal with. So this one is going to be about 8.5 feet long, and what I want to do with it, up here in the corner, let's see if I can get to a little bit better lighting. So up here, we've got this cut that I made right up in here that should line up with this outer cut up here. Now obviously you can see here where I cut over a little bit, and there's a little extra sheet metal sitting down behind this stiffener down there. So my plan, I'm going to run this piece of sheet all the way over to this cut right here. I'm also planning on cutting this piece of roof right here parallel to this section, and then up here as well parallel to that. So this one from here down, I'm going to try to just stand it up if I can without messing with the front section up here. So try to arrange it a little bit. Now the problem is that means this is probably going to angle a little bit, and it probably won't actually come up and touch this, but we'll give it a try. I tried to measure it in such a way that I can at least put a tack up here on the corner just to hold it still, and then I'll work on patching the rest when I deal with the rest of the roof. So step one, let's get a couple of lines drawn, get some things cut, and see if I can stand up this piece of sheet metal right here a little bit. That'll give me a better idea of what dimensions and shape this particular piece needs to be. Well, that's a start. This piece here I can push out a little bit further to get it to kind of line up, and as expected there's a little bit of a gap there, but it's not too bad. This upper section here, once I have this section tacked into place, over here I'll just hammer this back down and re-weld it across there with whatever patch I need to make. And then I went ahead and bent these up a little bit. That one's bent a little high, but that's okay, it'll come back down. So obviously I'll have to make some triangular shaped pieces to fill in the gaps here. And then I have a little bit of a gap to fill in up top here when the time comes. But my plan is to put another support probably right up in here along this area somewhere. Again, the bus didn't actually have many supports along this area, so anything I add in here is just going to be extra, but might as well make it as solid as I can. So now I can get an idea of what size I need for my piece of sheet metal down here. I'm going to take a look on the outside because, sorry about the angle here, you notice right here I've got this piece, so I have to come up along the edge here, and then up top I need to slide up into position as well up underneath this. So we'll take a measurement from the farthest point here, and I can always grind it down if necessary, all the way over to the overlap necessary down on that end there. That'll give me an idea of how big this piece needs to be. Well, I think that's about it for this video. Things are getting a little bit long. So I just removed the remainder of the lower rivets along, see if I can point out something, along the bottom of the rub rail over here. So I'm just about ready to pull that thing off of there. Once I get the last remaining piece of sheet metal into the front up here, you can see right up there, there's still a hole in front of where I did the roof raise. So I've got one more piece of material to add in. Once that's done, we'll go ahead and attach the ratchet straps to this rub rail since it's all one piece. And I'll see if I can at least support it, pop the bottom rivets out, and just kind of pull it off of there and put it back on top of the sheet metal. We'll get a couple rivets in the bottom of it to hold it still, and then work my way down from the top, coming down each one of, if you can actually see what's going on up here, each one of these. So right in front of that strap there's a vertical hat channel that I'm going to be going on. I'll just work my way down each hat channel and then get the top of the rub rail reattached. So I'll keep videoing this as I keep working on it, but for now I think that's about all I can do. So I hope you're enjoying the projects you're getting yourselves into, and I'll see you over the next horizon.